Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We're joined by Lisa Norton. She's founder of Harrogate Garden Design. She's won lots of awards, including the Gold Award winners for Harrogate Flower Show 2021, Designer of the Year, APL Awards. She won the Silver Merit Award there 2023. She's been featured in Modern Gardens magazine. She's also a brilliant speaker on our discussion panel at Surface Design Show in London this year, and also on issue 9 of the Journal of Biophilic Design, which had a neurodiversity focus. She wrote an amazing article on schools with nature indoors, about how we need to create environments that help everyone flourish, and which is especially true for school environments to support learning and growth. So I do encourage people to go to the journal of biophilicdesign.com or to Amazon and search out issue 9, neurodiversity, to have a read. So Lisa, many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I've got a lot to follow from that introduction.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. I'm really thrilled to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? I do like on your website, you say you create little bits of heaven on earth. And I have to say, the images of your work on there and stuff that I know about you, it really looks like you do. But can you tell us about what you do, please?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I primarily started as a garden designer 8, 9 years ago, and I then looked to train in biophilic design 4 or 5 years ago. We're actually one of the only kind of level 4 qualified biophilic design consultants in the UK. So we look at gardens, which is kind of like our bread and butter. Love applying biophilic design principles to, people's residential gardens and giving them that real feeling. But also then more recently working in education. We've done some quite big projects in education, and there's quite a few in the pipeline at the moment. So really trying to bring the biophilic design principles to designs that are already planned. There's a lot of funding out there for education, and bringing the biophilic design benefits to as many people as possible, really.
Fantastic. You're doing an amazing job. Can I
Mm.
ask you, actually, what got you into gardening? What got you into the sort of plant connection right at the beginning? What was it?
I think I spent a lot of time in nature as a child. My dad was an avid gardener, so I would spend many days just getting bored in the vegetable garden. I can probably identify every vegetable by its leaf. Um, um, I think that's actually quite a talent in this day and age because our children can't. So I think, and I spent 20 years in sales, behind a desk, marketing, and then I must admit I had a little bit of a mini career breakdown, which I think most of us probably experience, whether it's career breakdown or some type of epiphany of, right, I need to do something different. And I think really in hindsight, I was craving that natural connection. And I've always had a kind of a flair for design, and it was just like, right, why don't we put the two together and yeah, connect myself and connect other people back to nature. And I could see, just looking at the kind of the garden design field, how powerful that can be. When you see like an amazing outdoor space, it has a very strong emotional response in your body. So I was thinking, yeah, I was very keen to kind of get into that, really.
Mm. You say emotional response, and that's so true, isn't it? There is an emotional response to nature, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, you can feel it, can't you? It's because it's an innate need. We do emotionally respond, and that's why I just feel so passionate about this work, because it's about being able to create that for other people, and
Mm.
especially when people really need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned biophilic design and why I mean particularly for you is biophilic design so important? Why is it? What's the sort of why is it the heartbeat of what you do?
Well, I think it's because it puts a scientific approach to design as well. And I think I've always been very kind of, I like to quantify things. So I like to be able to put some theory behind it. And when I came across biophilic design, I mean, I originally was quite obsessed with living walls and was
Yeah.
researching them. And it was only on that journey I came across biophilic design. And when I read the content of the course,
Yeah.
it was just like a no-brainer. I was like, I have to study this because this is exactly what I want to be able to provide. So I think it is the science behind it and knowing that when you create those spaces, that the people who inhabit those spaces feel that and benefit from that. And as we said, an emotional attachment, but it's such a positive response that you take away with you, and that affects not only you but the people that you're surrounded by, and so it has a more almost like a ripple effect as well. So I think it's creating that feeling in spaces where people want to be there, they don't want to leave, and they want to go back, and that is particularly powerful in schools.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe we could talk about that SEN school that you did. It was a biophilic SEN school, which was the first, or is the first in the UK. And I know you touched on it in the article, which is in issue 9, neurodiversity issue of Journal of Biophilic Design. Plug, plug, plug. But seriously, though, I mean, you use lots of patterns of biophilic design there. I mean, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what those patterns were, or maybe you could tell us a bit about the brief.
Yeah, well, it was actually strange because the project started out as supplying a living wall.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was never intended to be like the whole project. But then once I went in and I started speaking to the architect, and I could see that there was this pot of money that had been designated for this refurbishment, and there wasn't any particular plan to do any design specifically throughout the school or inside or outside. They were just going to do, as most schools are, kind of the way we've always done it without much thought. So it was just really a building of relationships, and as soon as you start to talk about biophilic design and the possibilities of, well, what if we applied that to the school? I think everybody on board. I mean, we did have an amazing team. Like the head teacher, the reason why I ended up being there was because she knew about biophilia, and she wanted that for the children. So that's why, because I'm one of the only designers in the north, it was kind of like they came to me, and so yeah, so we ended up it grew, and I ended up designing the inside and the outside and applied as many of the patterns of biophilic design where we could. So we created the entrance, which was the living wall, like that lush vegetation.
Mm.
We created a really smooth pathway, the wayfinding through the school, through the carpets. We opened up walls to bring in more natural light. We put in roof lights where they wouldn't have normally done. And I was really lucky because I got on so well with the architect, Chris, at West A, and we just bounced off each other. Like we were just, and I'd come up with a crazy idea and then he'd take it even crazier. And I was like, oh my goodness. Whereas sometimes it can be like you come up with a crazy idea and people just go, no, that's too hard. Whereas this was like,
Yeah.
so we were very lucky. And we also used a local mural artist. And she knew the landscape like the back of her hand because she'd spent time growing up there.
Wow.
So she painted in one of the classrooms a mural, and we actually blended the amazing views. And she took the actual landscape and then blended that into a mural, so it kind of followed
Oh,
the
wow.
line from
Oh,
inside to outside.
oh, nice.
So we had like a mural. So looking at views, prospect refuge, how we position seating for children, patterns, materials. We looked at all the principles really and included as many as we could where we could really. I mean, it wasn't too overboard, but it was a really special project, and I feel really, really grateful to have had that and to bring that to the children and parents.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely space, and I know we got some pictures actually in the journal. Can you maybe describe a couple of like the little areas, the little nooks and things, and what you did and the material? So to try and conjure, or maybe one of the spaces, so people can really feel it. Do you know what I mean? If you can try and describe maybe one of the little spaces where the kids are sitting?
Yeah, so we had like a reading breakout space. So I suppose one of the advantages of doing outdoor and indoor is you can influence both.
Yeah.
So we had a courtyard which was fantastic because you get that natural light and you get the views. So I put a planting bed in the courtyard which was like an organic kidney shape,
Yeah.
and then took that shape and then modelled the reading nooks to be the same, so that you created that cohesion. So the reading nooks were all like organic shaped, and then they were clad out by locally sourced timber. Um, and then we had some tree screens to divide off the section, and they were made from real tree trunks. We were using a local forester to do that. So that was kind of in the reading area, and then we had a nature immersive space, and in there we actually brought a huge tree trunk in. Um, and just seeing the children, like how they responded to that, it was definitely kind of the 15th principle of awe and wonder. And this little boy called David came in, and he was just like, oh my, and he wasn't allowed to say oh my god, he was like, oh my, and he didn't know what to say, and he was just like hugging the tree, and it was just so nice. And we had like crash mats made from acoustic materials, all shaped with the similar kidney shape. We used acoustics in the nature immersive space. Acoustics are paramount in schools. So yeah, it was kind of like a real bringing all those natural elements in, but still following the principles as well.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's beautiful. It's a very much. It felt to me when I saw the images, and I've seen some stuff on your website as well. But it just seems very safe, and welcoming and calming as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what design does. It doesn't, if you follow the principles, then it creates that. So, and that is one of the most wonderful parts of this job, is actually, because it's like anything, isn't it? You kind of know it, but until you feel it, and when you feel it, you're like, oh yeah, it's great. Actually, it has done everything that I was supposed to do. Thank goodness for that.
Have you
um,
had any feedback from, like, I don't know, obviously I don't know if you go back and do like go back and obviously know the headmistress, but did she give you any feedback at all?
Yeah, she was brilliant actually. She got feedback from the parents and the
Oh,
teachers and the children. So the parents were, they said that there was a significant difference in how their child was responding to
really?
school, about wanting to go to school, that they were calmer. And I think also it's kind of like they were taking that positivity in their education, because she kind of, it wasn't just about me creating the design. She was educating the children on why this was affecting them. So they were taking that to their parents. So the parents fed back and said, that they were so pleased with how they were responding. But actually, some children came off melatonin because of the natural
Wow.
lights, that they were reducing their medication. Some children were stopping using their ear defenders because of the acoustic effects. And yeah, I mean, the reading nook, I think one of the children said, that the reading nooks was like a safe space, like his safe space of sanctuary. So I mean, that's the beauty. That's why I love working with children. I mean, I love them anyway because they're so, they're not conditioned, are they, like us? But they can articulate this work so well. Like there was another garden that we did, and in Harrogate, and again, the teachers were asking for feedback, and they said, one of the children said, I can think more clearly and I can breathe more deeply, and I was like, that is, yeah, it's, so I think everybody should design for children because they can they can feedback brilliantly.
Oh, I love that. I can think more clearly and I can breathe more deeply.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
profound.
It made me cry actually when I
Yeah.
got that. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. That's so beautiful. Um, I want you to see the other gardens that you've created. You've got like a well-being gardens, Zen kind of gardens as well. I mean, maybe you could tell us about one of the gardens and sort of what it was, taking it to the grown-ups now,
Yes.
which I'm sure gave them that same kind of, that ability to think more clearly. And so there was a bit of a gap there when I was trying to think, because I was thinking that what you've just said there should be like lifted out and like just blasted everywhere. I went to a school for a completely different thing, but they've done just a refit of this new so it was an old building, but for an SEN place, and it's blue and it's plastic and it's vinyl and square walls, white walls, and I know they're going to put artwork and all that kind of stuff, and but they've been in there for like a couple of months already. And I'm like, oh my God, you could have done so much different with this, you know. But
Uh,
it's having those tools, it's having that knowledge, it's understanding how you can reuse budget. So I've gone off
and
piece
it's having
here, but
the team as well is key. It's
yeah,
having the team of people who are all on board, I think, because I think we can be a little bit, especially in some areas, we kind of want to do the things the same way we've always done them because it's easier, and
yeah,
we think it's affordable, more affordable that way. But
yeah.
actually, you can innovate and save money. So it's
Yeah.
just thinking out more outside the box, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a lot of companies doing refits of these spaces,
Mm,
like big contractors or architect companies that go in and do it, and unless they've got someone like you who can
mm.
bring that vision or the magic, if you want, this biophilic design touch, and understanding into a space, they're still going to, like you say, they're going to still do the same thing. So we need lots of you kind of being plugged into these.
Yeah,
These,
especially with the amount of funding there is through
I
the
know.
DFE. I mean, there's a huge amount. I mean, I think our target is something like 500, is it 500 schools in 10 years or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
And if they all get built like white boxes, then we are doing our children a disservice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we really need to. I don't know how we do it. I think we need to get in front of whoever it is we need to get in front of, all of us really, and
Yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
would be
and put
great
the
if we
onus
could.
on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we've yeah. So sorry, going to go talk about
Gardens.
the gardens now because there are some amazing things that you've designed. Just again, I encourage people to look at your website. It's harrogategardendesign.com, is it?
.co.uk.
.co.uk, harrogategardendesign.co.uk. There'll be a link on the spiel that goes with the podcast. But have a look down at the projects that she's done. Actually, our conference coming up in November is going to have a sort of very light theme of water. So I wanted to talk about that actually, and the well-being garden that you designed, and which had a water feature in it. And it was really quite a small plot to work with, but relative terms, but what I can see. Can you tell us a little bit about that particular project, what it was? And what you did there, please, and the sort of biophilic design elements.
Yeah, it was a very bland. It was just all decked. There was no greenery at all. Just like a brick wall courtyard. But I think, to be honest, the smaller spaces take more consideration. But also can feel more transformed really. So that's where biophilic design principles come in amazingly. So yeah, I mean, I would always include water in a garden if the client lets me. Some people say definitely no, and I'm like, oh. um, but most of my gardens have water in them just because of that level of energy. So the well-being garden was, we had steps down. We created like a throughway through the path, through a pathway. So that was like a really nice kind of wayfinding. We brought the water in. We created a lot of, because we were limited in planting space, so put a lot of like lush greenery in, like Fatsia japonicas. So it created that real lush vegetation feel, and really brightened up the space. And then also, because we didn't have space to put grass in there, between the stepping stones, I can never pronounce it. It's Celerio. It's definitely not that how you pronounce it, but it's something similar. It's called Mind Your Own Business.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know that.
yeah. Yeah. So we put that between the pavers, and within 6 months, it had created like a lush lawn effect.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, you're getting that greenery, but without the having to put grass in. So yeah, and we use quite natural materials because of it was like a natural stone house. So we were, we kind of included all the principles, but like again visiting the client after and seeing the what they get from it was it's really powerful, and it's and I feel really really grateful to be able to give this to people, because I think, I mean, she's called Dee. If she watches this, I'm sure she'd like her name mentioning. um, but she's a busy GP. Her husband's a teacher. They've got a young son, and they just wanted a retreat, a place to retreat to. And I think, yeah, so it was, this is the society we live in, isn't it? We're all absolutely stretched. And we need, if we can get those moments of mindful moments, then it's an important part of our well-being.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was really what we incorporated in that garden.
that's lovely. Can I ask you about the water feature? What was it, please?
It was a custom made water feature in there. It had so we just built it out of block. We put a reservoir and a pump, and then put a blade in. We've done two of those now, so it's quite good to be able to manipulate the space and just put something in where it will fit.
Mm.
But there are lots of different water features on the market, really, aren't there? Different ones. I mean, we put like a really nice natural slate one in, into the Japanese style one. But yeah, I mean, I'd really, really love to put, a one inside, like a proper, yeah. So if there's any like indoor water feature companies who do amazing things, then please get in touch on my vision board.
Amazing. Why is water important to you? What is it? I mean, I love the sound of it personally. I've got a little pump thing that I put outside. I managed to fix something, and it's like the best thing. It's only a tiny trickle, and that reminds me, I've got to clean it actually. But it's just lovely. It blocks the sound of like the cars, which are the other side of the trees. I mean, the trees block a lot of the sound, but it just has that muffly effect, doesn't it? But what for you? Why is water? Why is
Well, from a scientific perspective,
yeah.
it puts you into a semi-meditative state called drifting, which you probably know. It was in the Blue Mind book. But yeah, it has a huge effect on our brains. Know how to filter out that sound because then we know we can survive. And the more trickling it is, indicates that it's more aerated, which means it's healthier. So that's why we home into it, because I think we can only live for 72 hours without water. Whereas food, we can go for about a month, I think, can't we? So obviously we're tuned into it. So that's why we have such a strong response. But when we did it in the school, we actually put in the Sen school outside, we put a pondless waterfall in. And I was there when we installed it, and I'm so glad I was, because I experienced the reaction from the children, and the teachers. And so what happened was, all of a sudden, it was just a very bland grass space, and we put this waterfall in, and the children were then congregating around the top and having these lovely little social interactions. And then the
Oh,
teachers would break out. If they were needing to have a chat, they'd come and stand at the top, and they'd all just stand, and like they were like in awe of this, because it was having that effect on them. And one boy walked past and said, Miss, that's really relaxed. That's making me really relax, that sound. And yeah, so yeah, so
oh,
I do think putting water. I mean, obviously you've got the certain things you have to comply with for schools, particularly for Legionnaires and things. But I think that was probably just as important as the swing that we put in around the corner, because it has a different impact, and it creates different engagement and interactions between the children.
yeah, exactly. And it's also about the ions as well, isn't it? Negative ions, and
Yeah,
there's all these
yes,
physical
yes.
health benefits as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, isn't there? It's like when you go to the beach, it's increases the amount of oxygen in your blood, and yeah,
It's just
yes,
so many things. It's like we just so need it. We're like you say, we're so dependent on things. And I know I've just been sort of posting about that the One Earth thing that David Attenborough has done.
oh, I need
And
to
again,
go
it's
watch
just
that.
bringing home how important the oceans are and the sea, and going back to that water dependency on us, for us. Yeah, just need to. I love the fact that you love water as well. So we should chat about that again another
Yeah,
time. Actually, I want to talk about the Zen garden that you've done as well. The Japanese style garden. Can
yeah.
you can you sort of describe what you've done there, and like sort of various. I mean, for me, it's sort of the whole Zen thing. You know,
Hmm.
the materials that you use in the Zen garden is very biophilic. It's bringing
Hmm.
it back to nature. I mean, the Japanese, if you want, almost, you know, was doing this, were doing
Yeah.
it, and we probably were
Yeah.
doing it before as well, I suppose, if you think about it. But can you describe the sort of Japanese garden, the sort of Zen garden that you did, please?
Yeah, I mean, it was good to have a theme, really. I think, like you say, Zen Garden does everything because,
Yeah.
you do have water in there, you have the natural materials, you have the lush greenery, there's quite a lot of like forms and things in there. So you'd often, which, references kind of hills and things. In fact, the show garden that I did at the flower show, that we had like buxus balls that kind of blended into the landscape. So it's kind of again, tricking your mind into that kind of scenario. But also, I think with the Zen garden, that their ethos is to kind of have that pathway to the tea house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you would always create a pathway normally through Zen, which again fits with the biophilic design. And then I think also the change of scenery, not say scenery, the change of seasons in planting. So obviously with the aces, you get the leaf change, the stem changes, and I think that connects us back to seasons. It kind of connects us back to nature, and it also gives us a feeling of awe as well. When we, like in autumn, when you get all the leaves falling, you get that sensation, don't you? So again, this is a really good way of connecting us back to nature. So they do fit the bill perfectly, really. So, and I did like doing that because we did use some great locally sourced wood in there, and yeah, it definitely created that biophilic kind of zen space.
Yeah, the same like the natural materials that you used in the space as well. Can you maybe to explain to a couple of them, you know, what you did? Like this, you mentioned the stone and things. Can you
Yeah, so the gravel was a locally sourced gravel. So yeah, that was a really nice material to use. I think we used locally sourced timber that was treated for the decking. And then we just used again a timber, and we painted the pergola black to have that kind of Japanesey feel to it.
yeah,
And then we use a natural stone for the paving as well. So yeah, it's always nice to use natural wherever you can. Sometimes it does have its problems in gardens because living in the UK climate, then porous stone doesn't always weather that well. So yeah, it's kind of something that you need
yeah,
to look at through the
yeah.
design process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you know that garden particularly. I love the way that you've juxtaposed, like, I mean, like the stone textures with like the shapes of the flat, you know, the plants and the flowers and the leaves and everything. So you've got this juxtaposition, but creates harmony. It's like the balance, isn't it? The yin yang thing, I suppose. So
Yeah, and then that's the joy of planting. I mean, the planting is a whole process in itself, but it's yeah, it's nice. That's the finishing touch behind the garden.
yeah, no, great. Why for you is you know, a garden's important for us? You know, I mean, the fact, you know, why do we need gardens that are as humans, as it were? I mean, I know it's obviously biophilic design, but
Mm.
you know, I mean, why should we be creating these havens that are close to schools and homes and hospitals? You know, why is it important that we really need to be looking at, you know, garden design or, you know, putting little garden spaces, even if it's the tiniest thing?
I think one of the main things is this spontaneous social interaction, so
Yeah,
communities. So you're
yeah,
creating the
yeah.
opportunity for people to connect because we don't connect much in society now spontaneously. Everything's planned, everything's stressed, everything's so actually I think taking us back to our roots of being able to just visit somewhere and bump into somebody and have an opportunity to just hang out on a bench
Mm,
surrounded by lovely plants.
mm.
You just never know what is going to come from a conversation
No.
out of that. And because it does kind of nature inspires your creativity and your productivity and all that. So I think it's yeah, and also obviously it's the well-being
Mm.
effect. I think if that's what you were going to do, you'd create community green spaces within walking distance of everywhere, basically,
Yeah.
and encourage people to visit them frequently because I think that's one of the problems with children is that they don't know how to be bored anymore because technology has basically brainwashed them. So educating them that being in nature is an integral part of their life, and they actually have to do it to physically and mentally function well. Yeah, because yeah, I think that's a huge thing that we need to address.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you could say, well, you're going to have screen time. You're going to have screen time outside. At least,
Yeah,
you know.
because you're very likely to put your screen down if you're outside, to be fair.
Yeah, you are exactly. I mean, it's easy to get distracted by all like nature and stuff. We've got no mow May, and where I've got a tiny little area outside, and it's like it's mental. And it's got a load of like lovely lush flowers and little tiny native species and weeds that people would call weeds, but they're just so pretty. So I'll just let them be.
Lovely. Yeah.
But I'm just like the opposite, where there's like a public path footway. So I often sit and work outside, and there's like I've got no mow May under the cherry trees, so I get all the cherry blossom and all the birds and everything that's out there. But there's cow parsley and there's these little tiny, there's forget-me-nots, there's
Mm.
buttercups, and the amount of people that just stop, even if I'm in here and I've got the door shut or whatever, and they just stop and look, and the kids go in and play, and it brings so much joy. I think it's
Yeah,
joy, isn't it, really? You know?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely is. And you just left it to its natural
Yeah.
form. So yeah, we should be encouraged to do that more, I think,
Yeah.
definitely.
And we're getting more butterflies than
Um,
ever before. I mean, you must notice that, don't you? You
there's
know,
so
like
many this year. It's
yeah.
crazy. I saw an amazing one yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, again, that's because the councils and everybody's pulling together to
Yeah.
create these wilder spaces, like they used to do set aside or whatever it was in the farming, wasn't
Mm,
it? And leaving these spaces to go a bit nuts, and let nature do its thing because we understood
yeah.
can't keep, raping it and pillaging it. It's got to take time to breathe, So
Like Nep, the Nep. I don't know if you've been there.
yeah, oh yeah, I haven't been there yet.
The
No.
Nep estate. I was watching a documentary on that,
Yeah,
and they were saying about how they've just rewilded it completely,
yeah.
and they had a year where there was something like 11 million species of butterfly came from Africa and visited,
Yeah.
and they'd never known that before. Like it was, yeah. So I think that would be a really good educational trip. In fact, I'm going there in a few weeks to
Are you?
kind of
Oh,
get some inspiration from.
amazing. I want to make sure I do that too, actually. So
Yeah.
Um, can you tell us about another project that you've done where it brings in biophilic design that you love? I mean, there are so many on there, and we've spoken about a few already, but is there one that maybe apart from these ones that is also close to your heart, maybe you could tell us about?
Um, I think the school is the main one really where I've been able to do it inside and outside
Yeah,
and have that effect on because I think when I started doing biophilic design I was like I want to be able to take this work to people who don't have access to it. So it's lovely designing somebody's garden, but giving it to a child who doesn't necessarily have a garden, um, is so much more powerful. So I think it's kind of the school definitely kind of tops the projects for me. And I am in, kind of talking about a few other new build schools at the moment. So I feel, if we can start to really influence, where the money is already being spent,
yeah.
but spending it, in this much more thought-provoking way, I think is really what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, after seeing this school the other day, and obviously we've got the neurodiversity issue, which has got a lot about schools, and we have the schools issue. If there's anyone listening that wanted to fund a distribution of this, because I want to get this into the schools, so like
Mm,
education pieces and that, but we've got the issues that I want to just get out there. But obviously we're not for profit, so we
mm,
need the
mm.
printing costs covered. But if there's anyone out there who wants to sort of like be part or sponsor it or something, then please reach out to me because the more we can influence and help educate people, so like you just said, so that people I love that, can think more deeply and breathe more deeply. I think that's just the most beautiful thing. So it
Yeah.
really took me aback when you said that earlier.
Oh, it did, yeah, it did
Yeah.
me too at the time. And I
Oh,
think, we are doing our children a disservice right now. I
yeah.
mean, my son has ADHD and he didn't want to go to school for quite a few years and he struggled. All education system was just triggering his symptoms. It was a really difficult time. And I think that's why I feel so passionate because I can see, I bet there's not one person listening to this
Yeah.
who doesn't have a friend or, somebody who has a child who is struggling in education with anxiety or whatever it is. And if we can make a difference to that, then it's, we really owe it to our kids to do that, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they're sort of almost further close, well, they're closer to the chain, if you want, of where our primal being, isn't it really? Because they're still young, they're still being formed, and
Mm,
that we in biophilic design, obviously, we're we're using the biophilia principle of the fact that we grew up in a bio-based environment. We evolved in a bio-based environment, and now we're in a man-made environment, and now we're sticking our kids in those early formative years in these white boxes and square, harsh things. They're not going to flourish and grow up to be,
mm.
they're not going to, yeah, we're just setting them up to fail, really, in many ways.
We really are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially with all the pressures there are on them now.
yeah,
They need some break within that time, I think. And
yeah,
yeah, it's really important because they're really on the back foot, aren't they? They're fighting these technology addictions that
yeah,
that are being they can't fight it because it's designed
yeah,
to make them addicted.
yeah.
And we're allowing that to happen. We're allowing all this addiction to be, you
Mm.
know at their fingertips, and we're not giving them any other tools to bring them back to what they innately need.
Yeah, exactly. And when you see a forest school, I've gone into a few schools recently, and again, you go in and you got the normal classrooms, but the energy in the classroom, you think, well, why is the school different? And then they've got this beautiful forest school where they're outside and they're like all playing around and they're looking at birds, and the teachers are encouraging them to like be quiet and listen to see what they can hear. So then, because then they bring that back to the classroom where they listen to each other, and it has this whole beautiful knock-on effect, doesn't it, really? So it has a profound impact on so many levels, doesn't it? To have
Yeah,
like a, well, they call it forest school, but just, a bit of a wild garden or something that they can go out and just get muddy in as well. And,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about sustainability just briefly before we get to the end. And I know you're really passionate about them, and you've mentioned already that you source locally sourced materials,
Hmm.
stone, wood. For you, is it easy to source stuff? And then also, is it easy for you as a garden designer to meet the needs of wildlife as well as the needs of humans, as it were, and trying to reduce your impacts on the environment while also still adhering to the biophilic design principles? Or do you find one is informing the other?
I think it just all, yeah, it's easy to do if you set out to do it that way. You can source locally. Often it does rely on the kind of client brief as well, but wherever you can, source locally, and also that funds the community. And also, if you're doing a project like this, you get people bought in from the local community as well, so that can be quite powerful. But I think especially if you're doing gardens, encouraging things like, composting and rainwater harvesting, and using that so it becomes a self-fulfilling site almost, is really, we're creating, we're living from the land rather than this artificial tendency of man-made things that we tend to go to. So I think, yeah, I think it's kind of, if you can get it all on board, making a compost and feeding the plants with that, and encouraging the wildlife and different layers of planting to encourage different habitats and things, then it becomes kind of an ecosystem. So you can, definitely, and then the water, including that, you can kind of encourage as many different species, and encourage biodiversity as much, as long as your intention, it's having the intention, I think, at the start of a project, to ensure that you tick the right boxes.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite plant?
Oh, goodness. Worst question in the world. Oh, there's so many. Last year, actually, there was one. Well, it was my favorite last year, so it's not this year. Um, but it's called it's Actia Snow Queen, is it? Actia, can't remember the full name of it, but it's really tall. It's like a purple leaf, and it's got a white spiky flower on. Great for pollinating, and the smell is absolutely divine. In fact, it's nicer than jasmine.
Oh, really?
in my opinion. Yeah. So that's one of them. But things like verbena, salvia, perennial geums, I've got loads. But yeah, but yeah, that was my favorite last year.
Lovely, thanks. Well, we're getting near the end, so before I ask you the final magic question, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we've covered most things. I think the passion hopefully has, you can see that to make a difference to our kids. Um, and the education piece, I think, is huge. Getting our kids to know that it's important. And yeah, and I just think we need more people understanding what this work, the power of this work. And you can take it to the full extent of, air quality, well-being certification. If you've got the right team and you've got the right intention, it's having the people who want to create this type of work. Basically, it has no bounds for how positive an impact it can make, I feel.
That's lovely. Thank you. Well, I'm going to ask you the final question now, but if just people who are listening do go to the spiel that goes with the podcast, because there'll be links there back to the neurodiversity issue where Lisa's written, and obviously links back to your beautiful website with those lovely projects in. So Lisa, thanks so much. So final question. If you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
I think it would be creating lush green community spaces, as we touched on. I think creating that where multi-generational um, families can hang out and be, and create sort of that understanding of nature, how it affects your brain, and how much we need it for us to function well, and yeah, encouraging society to step out of the busyness and actually just go and sit on a bench with some nice planting and have some pretty basic but lovely conversations.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.